Okay, I'm going to solve these two questions that are off the a final assessment, distant learning final assessment for Algebra 4, I believe. So these are just two of the questions that people have been tending to have problems with. So it says solve from 0 to 2 pi. So that means we want to use the whole unit circle. So for this one, you're just kind of doing it like you're solving an equation. So originally, kind of pretend that tan and sine are both like x and a y. So what I would always do first is I would bring everything to the one side and set it equal to 0. So if I subtract tan x and I subtract 3 sine x from both sides, okay, so the 3 sine x is going to go away. So now I'm going to have, tan x sine x minus tan x equals 0. Okay, so now I have just a regular equation, and when I look at that, my next thought would be, should I factor this? And which is what I should do, and what I hopefully notice is that they each have a tan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out the GCF. So I'm going to factor out the tan x. So that would leave me with tan x here, and then I would have sine x, and then it would be minus 1 because there's actually something there. You don't want to leave it off. Equals 0. Okay, so what I've learned in the past is I take each of the factors and I set them equal to 0. So I have tan x is equal to 0. And then over the other one, I'm going to have sine x minus 1 equals 0. So sine x is equal to 1. Okay, so from here, I think, well, where do I get, now I want to find the angle that goes with the tan is 0. So for tan of 0, I'm going to be thinking the coordinate plane. So I know 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1. Okay, and I know tangent is sine over cosine, which is also y over x. So what I'm going to look for is I'm going to look for 0 over 1 or negative 1. So I'm going to look for y to be 0. So if I look here, this is where y is 0 and this is where y is 0. All right, so that would mean that at 0, so for this one, my answers are going to be 0, and then also at 180, it's going to work. And I would put 360 down, but I think the directions say that it's not less than or equal to, it just says less than 2 pi. So for the 0 part, tangent equals 0, two answers are 0 and 180. All right, if I want to find sine of x is 1, that's where I'm going to be thinking, okay, so sine is the y value. So where is the y value equal to 1? And I go on here and I look, where's the y1? Where's the y1? Here's where the y is 1, and that's at 90. So my last answer would be 90 for that. So these are my 3 answers for that question. All right, so for find the exact value, and this one had tan negative 1 with the radical 3 over 3. Okay, so this is where we're trying to find, tan negative 1 means inverse. And the inverse is, it has to be a 1-to-1 function. So the only place that tangent is 1-to-1 is in the first and the third quadrant. So tangent and sine, I'm only going to worry about the first and the third quadrant. Cosine is the first and the second quadrant. So at the first and the second quadrant, I'm going to mess around with between 0 and 180. My answer will fall between 0 and 180 if there's a cosine question. And for a tangent and a sine question, my answer is going to be between 90 and negative 90. Okay, so for 8 and 9, I'm just doing tangent, so I'm worrying about something between negative 90 and 90. 10, I'm going to be thinking my answer is going to be between 0 and 180, and then 11, we're back to tangent again. Okay, so now with tangent of radical 3 over 3, I want to think what triangle. Okay, it's positive for 1, which means I'm in the first quadrant, because in the fourth quadrant, all students take calc. The only one positive is cosine. So I know I'm not going to worry about that. So my answer is going to be between 1 and 90, whatever I pick. So I'm going to think of, okay, tangent is opposite over adjacent, okay? But I can't think of a triangle that has radical 3 and a 3 in it. But I do know that if that is simplified, so it's actually this. It's actually 1 over radical 3, because when I simplify that, that would give me radical 3 over 3. Okay, so 1 over radical 3 would be, so opposite over adjacent, and I think about my triangles, and which triangle has 1 across from it, and that would be 30. So that problem would mean my answer is 30 degrees, and I'm only going to have one answer. I'm not going to worry about where tan is positive, because again, it's an inverse, and we only want the one-to-one functions, so that's how we would do that. Going back up to 4, if you look at 5, get everything to one side again, and then actually you're going to factor it. So you're going to bring everything to one side and then factor it. Drop the cosine and make it an x. And then factor. And then you're going to get 2 answers for that one again. It might be a little bit more complicated about factoring because it's going to have a 2 cosine x in it. Okay, so that's for 9. So that would be my tip, is bring everything to the left, drop the cosines and just insert an x, and then think, how would I factor it, and then put the cosine back in and solve for the equation like we were doing, solve for the angle. All right, so those should kind of lead you in the right direction for those.